Okay, welcome. I'm Kristen Hayward. I'm the Assistant Deputy Minister responsible for the Wildfire Service with Natural Resources and Indigenous Futures. And Christine and I are here today just to give an update on the wildfire situation. I'll begin by giving a few of the stats on the fires. There are 81 active fires burning in Manitoba today. We've had 235 fires to date. The 20-year average for this date is 187. Most of the province has a high fire danger level. We are following 16 fires that are near communities or have the potential to impact communities. And I'm going to run through those for you, so it's a bit of a list here. I'll start in the north in the Lynn Lake area. North 2 continues to burn out of control, though good containment is in place and holding in areas near the community. This fire is over 80,000 hectares. North 42 is south of the community of Lynn Lake and impacting a hydro line that services Lynn Lake and Marcel Colomb First Nation. This fire is over 5,600 hectares and remains out of control. In the Leaf Rapids area, fire North 26 is about 14 kilometers from the community of Leaf Rapids and is over 5,100 hectares. Fire has been less active in recent days due to very small amounts of precipitation in that area, but is expected to pick back up as warmer and drier conditions return. North 47 is east of Leaf Rapids, south of Provincial Road 493. This fire is about 2,000 hectares and has the potential to impact the hydro line that services Opipon, Napiw, and Cree Nation. In the Thompson area, North 61 is about 15 kilometers north of Thompson and is over 6,000 hectares. Crews are working to establish fire guards in key areas and are setting up value protection on assets, including the airport. Fire North 10 at Tatasquiat Cree Nation is once again active. On July 4th, the fire raced through an area of the community and unfortunately has resulted in the reported loss of 7 structures. In the Cross Lake Pimicikamat Cree Nation area, Fire North 5 is active, primarily in the area near Genpeg and Whiskey Jack Landing. The fire is in close proximity to Highway 373 and is expected to result in intermittent highway closures due to fire and smoke. Fire 55 is located northeast of the communities and is about 3,000 hectares. Personnel are patrolling for spot fires both in the community and on islands in the lake to try to prevent this fire from spreading onto the mainland on the community side of the lake. Finally, crews are working on out of control fire about 7 kilometers from Woboden. This is Fire North 76. This fire was about 44 hectares at last report. Moving into the western region, West 17 and 28 near Flin Flon, Bakers Narrows, and Sheridan areas are still 2 separate fires, but together are impacting nearly 378,000 hectares. Both fires remain out of control, though good containment is in place in the immediate vicinity of the communities. Work continues to address hot spots, and as things dry out, we do expect to see more smoke popping up in areas of this very large fire complex. There are 3 fires impacting the Snow Lake area. Fires West 52, 53, and 59. Resources have been assigned to the area and we have West 59 under control. The other 2 remain out of control, but are approximately 24 and 14 kilometers respectively away from the community of Snow Lake. Fire West 25 at Pakatawagan is being monitored. There has been some activity on the north end of this fire, but the area around the community remains contained at this time. Finally, in the eastern region, Fire 61 remains the primary concern. The fire has grown about 3,000 hectares in recent days, north into the Atikaki Provincial Park. The fire remains hot and active mostly in northern areas, with some intensity also observed near Beresford Lake. Crews are working to address hotspots, hold the progress made to date, and contain those active areas on the north side. In terms of out-of-province resources, we have 141 personnel assisting us from other jurisdictions, including 127 firefighters and 14 incident management team and overhead personnel. This includes 100 firefighters and 2 agency reps from Mexico, 8 firefighters from Wisconsin and Michigan through our Great Lakes Forest Fire Compact, 19 firefighters and 1 agency rep from Parks Canada, and an 11-person incident management team from Parks Canada. And I think I'll leave it there and turn it over to Christine for the rest of the update.
Thank you, Kristen. I'm Christine Stevens. I'm the Assistant Deputy Minister responsible for the Manitoba Emergency Management Organization. Currently, there are 7 states of local emergency across Manitoba, and 6 communities are currently evacuated. That includes the town of Lynn Lake, the Wallace Lake Cottage Association, Marcel Colomb First Nation, Matthias Colomb Cree Nation, Tatasqueyak, and areas of Nopaming. This morning, the town of Leaf Rapids announced evacuation starting tomorrow as of 9 a.m. Currently, over 6,600 Manitobans remain evacuated. And what I'd like to talk about is some of the resources being allocated. So since the beginning of our wildfire season, over 600 structural firefighters from over 100 fire departments across Manitoba and the Manitoba Fire Service have stepped in to support the wildfire response efforts. And that does continue to reflect, a province-wide rallying around this event. Currently, there are 64 personnel from the Office of the Fire Commissioner and the Manitoba Fire Service that are deployed to support value protection and planning operations in Lynn Lake, Leaf Rapids, Split Lake, or Tatasqueyak, and Thompson. I'll leave it there for now.
There are some individuals from Leaf Rapids who have expressed concerns about getting out in the evacuation tomorrow. The community doesn't have firm leadership and they have older relatives or relatives with disabilities who cannot get on the bus. They cannot get the money together to get in their own cars. How is the province going to support them?
So the province is actively working in Leaf Rapids and has been actively engaging with the community. There's boots on the ground in the community that are working to coordinate the evacuation. So transportation has been arranged. Folks who require additional supports have been identified and will be supported through the evacuation.
They're saying that they haven't yet been able to speak with anyone from the province. They've called around, they tried to get support, but they haven't been able to get it. You're just saying that's not the case?
We do have folks in the community coordinating the response on the ground, so we are there supporting.
The mayor of Thompson is saying that there could be an evacuation of the city of Thompson. If that happens, the province has enough resources to welcome all those evacuees.
When there's a situation similar to what Thompson is experiencing right now, it's important to pre-plan and be ready for everything. At the moment, the community is not at risk, but just like the city of Thompson is planning, just like the province plans, it's important for individuals to plan too and have go bags and that sort of thing ready should it be needed. Manitoba is actively planning and looking at accommodation supports that would be available should portions of Thompson or the city have to evacuate.
And in terms of those accommodations, I was going to ask about that. That's a lot of people to evacuate from one community. Do you know where they'd end up across the province? I'm guessing primarily Winnipeg, but would other communities have to step up as well then?
We're in the planning phase, and part of planning is looking at the resources we have available here and, in other jurisdictions, just like we did before with Ontario. So, it's part of our planning conversations, and what we do in every event is to look at all the options available. Looking at hotels first and making sure that people can be somewhere, safe.
Is the Leela soccer complex, is that being opened up again as a shelter potentially?
So Leela will become a registration center as of tomorrow morning, and it is being stood up just in case it is required. We're proactively working on that to make sure it can open as a congregate shelter if needed.
So do you know how many hotel rooms that you have available right now for the Leaf Rapids residents?
I don't have that information right now because it's changing all the time as folks come out. We're working to accommodate all the P1s, so I don't have that at the moment.
How many people roughly from Leaf Rapids are you anticipating will have to be evacuated?
Currently, there's just over 300 people registered in that community to evacuate.
Do you have a number of new registrants or new people that have registered for evacuation in the past couple of days?
I don't have that with me. We can follow up.
And-
Do you have,
Go ahead.
do you have any numbers on how many people are evacuating for a second time or have evacuated and haven't been able to return home yet, but their communities remain under evacuation notices due to wildfires?
I don't have it broken out. That way we currently have about 6,600 Manitobans out of their home.
How many are still in Thompson? How many evacuees are still in Thompson?
Thompson is not hosting a congregate shelter at this time.
I guess it's a dynamic situation, but do you know like what's the actual likelihood of Thompson needing to be evacuated fully?
I wish I had a crystal ball and could scope those things out, but at this time, based on the current conditions, the work that we're doing, and the forecasted conditions, we don't expect Thompson to be in immediate danger over the next couple of days at least.
And near Leaf Rapids, I guess Opipo, Napiwin, Cree Nation is nearby. Do you know if they're going to evacuate as well, like Leaf Rapids, or what the plan is there?
I know that the community is not threatened by fire, so any decisions that they do make to evacuate would be related to smoke or potential loss of access to the road in and out of the community.
Going back to the Thompson, you said nobody in a congregate shelter, but are people staying in hotels in Thompson right now?
No, not at this time, not that I'm aware of, no.
In the first wave of wildfires, many northern First Nations were asking for more firefighting equipment on the ground, to prevent fires and to be able to address them within the community. Has the province sent any more firefighting equipment, or are there plans to, send more, dedicate more resources in that area?
You know what, the Office of the Fire Commissioner is staging Thompson as as a staging ground for firefighter and equipment and resources that they can then deploy to the north as required. So there is, equipment and staff available if needed.
Would the province consider covering the gas for people who can't get their relatives onto a bus due to disability or age, so that they can comfortably get those relatives out of the community?
That type of case management really happens on an individual level, so that's not something I would speak to right now.
I know that one of the last times you were here talking about structures, and there wasn't any firm numbers. Do we have any updates on how many structures we've lost to the wildfire season this year?
Nothing firmer than what we've reported previously. So 137, I believe, is the last number.
What have you learned from, the first round of evacuation efforts, and, do you plan to do anything differently to make it go smoother this time around?
So in terms of pre-planning, I know that there's been pre-registration occurring in communities that could be at risk for evacuation. That allows the Red Cross and emergency social services to really hone in on folks that might need some additional supports. So that's been happening on an ongoing basis in communities that need that. And obviously we've been doing forward planning for accommodations and other elements of support that would be required.
The situation seemed to really escalate late last week, over the weekend, after seeming to be a little bit calmer for a few days at least. What sort of drove that? What was the reason for this escalation in fires?
It's been lightning starts, so we've had a lot of lightning go through the province. When numbers were really escalating, we were seeing over 25 new fires every 24-hour period popping up. So I think, as we've mentioned before here, when lightning strikes, it can take 3 to 5 days, sometimes even longer, for that smoke to pop up. So that's what we're dealing with now, is a lot of starts from lightning, and more forecasted on the horizon, unfortunately.
There's rain in the forecast coming up, is that correct?
There's some scattered or isolated chances of rain. There's rain forecasted more so for the southern and central parts of the province than the areas where we would like it to be.
So the lightning that's been forecasted, is that in mostly northern Manitoba?
There's a minor risk of thunderstorms through northern Manitoba today, and then again midweek around Wednesday we're seeing potential for more convective activity as well. So, and that's province-wide.
Inland Lake, has that community lost power? Did that power cut happen?
As of noon, they have not lost power. I understand there's someone on Zoom.
Yes, we have two reporters on Zoom. One question, one follow-up. We'll start with Timur Durrani from the Globe and Mail.
Hi, thank you so much for taking our questions today. I guess my first question is there a need at this point to declare a province-wide state of emergency again in Manitoba? And at what point would that need for such a declaration happen, if it were to happen again?
So, we continue to monitor the situation, and we are able to respond to this right now with the resources and tools available to us. So today, we're not considering a state of emergency in Manitoba, and, we continue to reevaluate, and we will, do what the moment calls for if the situation arises that does require us to do that in the future.
Okay, my second question is a confirmation of two different things you said today. So you've said, I think the number of the total people that you mentioned was 6,700 evacuees right now. Could you confirm that? And then also, you said 81 active wildfires today. Both of those numbers seem quite large, right? So I'm also trying to get a sense of where and how this compares in terms of earlier in the summer, because 81 fires seems like a lot, but I know that not all of those are as intense, or the size of those are not comparable to before. Could you sort of explain that a little bit?
Sure, I can take the first part of that question. Currently, there's approximately 6,600 evacuees out of their homes, and at its peak, previously we had over 22,000 Manitobans out of their homes. And I can hand it to Kristen for the other part.
Sure. Yeah, you're right. The number 81 is a lot larger than we've been reporting early on, but it's not crazy unusual. What we do see normally around July and into August is an escalated level of activity due to lightning and thunderstorms that move through the province. So you're just looking at the average number of fires we would have had. The 20-year average for this date is 187. And we are at 235. So we're definitely above average for the number of fires we've had so far this year. And I don't have the number in front of me, but we will definitely also be high in terms of area burned, because the number of fires we've had that have been very large is abnormal.
Okay, moving now to Radio Canada. Galatian, one question, one follow-up.
Yes, thank you for your time. You mentioned in Thompson there was no more people going into hotels, but on the MB Ready app, it says that the Thompson Reception Center at Brentwood Hotel is open. So I was just wanting to get some clarity on that.
Sure, so that is a center where folks can register so that we are aware that they've evacuated. It allows them to be connected with Red Cross resources, but currently Thompson is not a host community for evacuees.
Is there a follow-up, Gala?
That's all, thank you.
Okay, we'll throw it back to the room now. Thank you.
Any additional questions in the room?
Are you able to just provide like a little bit more information on the decision to evacuate Leaf Rapids and sort of how that came together?
I'm not sure if either of us would be necessary. I mean, what I can speak to, it's a community decision. So what I can speak to is looking at the fires surrounding that community, especially the one that is closer to the community, which I can give you the number of, this fire North 26. Although it's not threatening the community at this time, our conversations with the community will have been looking at predictions for what could happen based on forecasted wind conditions, forecasted precipitation. And so that would have been part of the information that factored into their decision.
Okay, thanks guys.